go back and say that again. When you click it twice, it will reset, so you may not be live on the website now. Let's find out. But that's all right. It's gonna rock.
All right, I'm gonna go live, I think.
Yeah, you good. Y'all live, man.
Hi, everybody.
Just like that, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk About It. It's the six-man Dean Geronimo.
I'm Miss E.
Hey, this is Wonder.
And I am Miss Melissa.
And if you want to call in and talk about it, give us a call at 646-233-1302.
Okay.
So I start to my right. Miss E, how you doing?
It's a little stressed as I
It's a little
just like
stressed.
gave my tail a while, but I'm all right. Yeah, I'm getting there. Yeah.
It'll get there. It'll
Yeah,
get better.
It'll be better. Yeah, but I'm okay. All in all, I'm good. Thank you.
Wonder.
What's up, brother?
Tell me something good, man.
Hey, I'm here. And ready to get it on with this show. And that's it, man. Just working, moving, shaking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I was gonna
Are
say
we in the
moving
shot?
close.
We all in the
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
all
know,
in the
let's
shot.
get a little
like,
closer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So nothing much, man. Nothing much is going on with me. I'm here.
Nothing much. Okay, Miss Melissa, good evening, lady.
Hi, everyone. Good
Hello.
evening. Good
How are
evening.
you? Good
Tell
to
us
see you.
something
Happy
good.
New
I
Year.
know. Happy New Year
right?
to
Happy
everyone.
New
I know
Year.
it's been a
Yeah.
while since
Yeah.
I've been here. I saw last time I saw you guys were like what last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, last year.
Last year. Yeah.
It's always a pleasure
Thank you.
coming here and
Pleasure having you.
chopping it up
Yeah.
with y'all. You know,
It's good to
I
have
haven't
you.
seen you in a while,
Yeah,
Geronimo.
I've
What's
been
been
missing,
going
but I'm
on?
still hanging on like an old loose tooth. That's
You
what I
better. You better.
do. And other than that, we're gonna get into it tonight. I guess we'll start with our first topic. I don't have it. Who has it? You got it, Wonder? You got it, Miss E?
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah,
I
we can
know
start.
what
Yeah,
I was
ladies,
gonna
what you
talk
got? Yeah,
about.
what you got?
Yeah, so
What are we talking about
know
tonight?
So my little topic. So I was so busy that I forgot to like chime in, and I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
So who saw the Tyler Perry movie on Netflix?
Oh my
Far
God.
Did you
from
watch
great.
it?
Yeah, I
Let's
saw
talk
it.
about
Yeah,
it.
let's
I
talk
saw it.
about
I saw it.
that.
So-
Yeah. So I liked it. You know,
I
I
did
thought
too.
it was pretty good. You know, I didn't go into it with any unrealistic expectations. You know, it's a Tyler Perry movie, which is to me, i.e., Black Lifetime movie. You
Yes,
know, right?
yes, yes.
Right. So
But you have to have some
Black
expectations for Tyler though,
Lifetime.
because he has set the bar in terms of young and upcoming filmmakers.
Okay.
And there's a certain level of production that he needs to bring into his films. So to
right,
speak.
but I don't think Tyler Perry sets the bar in that scenario. Like I don't think he ever set the bar in that scenario. Like it's a Tyler Perry movie. You know it's gonna be crazy wigs, right? You know what the storyline is gonna be.
Yeah.
Right. It's gonna be low production, like I didn't really watch it for that, but I do enjoy
She said the
his
B-movie
movies
filmography, bro.
Well,
But
it
you know
is, because you know what that you know
they
what
ready,
it
they
is.
recording
know
a
what
movie
Miss
like
Show-
this.
Yeah, I mean, you know it is. That's how his movies are. So I wasn't expecting. I can't even think of somebody that
Hi,
I wasn't expecting Black Panther level production. Now that I wasn't expecting, but Ryan Coogler, that guy, I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting
You said
that.
not that.
I'm not expecting Scorsese up
So
there, but
So I want to clarify.
So you thinking Matty Rich type production?
I'm thinking
Larry
no,
Love, loving
no.
all the ladies.
I'm thinking Tyler Perry, right? Because that's what he
Yeah.
does, right? He
What's
gets
up with
in the
the wigs,
movies,
though?
right? He gets in the movies. He's got the bad afro on.
The Afro
That's
was hard.
that's what I expected. So I understand now the flip side of it. Well, first of all, I kind of thought the movie was pretty good. It was a little bit of a twist,
I like the
right?
end. The
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 twist
end,
was
the
good.
twist at the end was really unexpected because usually his stuff is pretty predictable. It all ends up nice, neat in a bow or something
There were
like
so
that.
many glitches in that
Yeah.
movie, though, and that's what I
No,
talked
I'm
about.
not saying. Yeah, I'm not saying that there weren't, but all in all, I was entertained by it, and it kept me. It kept my interest. So, that's that. Now, on the flip side, I know some people tore that movie apart, you know. But his wig, though, I will say the one thing about the wig, though, I was like, as soon as I seen him in that wig, I was like, really?
I hated that
Tyler?
wig, and I hated
I was
the
like,
combo.
really?
It was like a two-piece meal.
Yeah,
like,
I said
with the beard
I
attached
said,
to
come
it.
Like, I
on,
can't
yeah,
take
that
you
wasn't
serious
good.
with your
Yeah,
hair.
So
that
what,
wasn't good.
What I want to clarify,
Yeah,
though,
mhm.
in terms of what I meant by high expectations, here's
Right.
this man that has really built himself up, right?
Right.
Built this
Mhm.
amazing studio.
Right,
Is amazing in every sense of the word, right?
right,
Tyler, you got to hire some writers, right?
Right,
Get a
right.
writer's room going.
Right.
Get some good. There's people out here that's willing to work. You know,
Right.
get a good production, a good production staff. So to
right,
speak.
right.
I mean, there were so many glitches in the movie, right?
Right,
In
right.
terms of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? You got the cop arresting somebody and telling him he'll be right back.
Wait.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
that
Stay
was,
right
I know.
here.
Stay right here.
Stay
No,
right here,
stay
I'll be
right
right
here.
back.
And he pulls off, and I'm like, what is it? What, that
And
was a
but-
little
And
weird
Alright,
there.
and then
Yeah, that was
Sarah
weird.
gets out the handcuff. It was just
But the first time Buddy just
it
stood
was like
over
writing
there
a
on the
paper
side,
at the
I was
last
like,
minute
Yeah,
and
okay.
hoping to get an A.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
that's what I meant by when I said
Right.
about the expectation level, because he's black excellence.
But I'm still trying to figure
As
out
far
But
as some people's
what
not,
real
concerned.
yeah,
dudes
but
you
not
know,
as far as
like the
filmmaking,
black
he's
dude
not.
stood there
Yeah.
when he was pulling off. He was just standing there.
I
was
know,
just
he
like,
was standing
nah,
there.
Bro, I done took off in a full sprint. Like, I'm out of here.
I know that was
I'd
kind
Wait
of
right
ridiculous.
here, all right?
Nope.
I'll be right
I'm
back.
coming with
Yeah.
you because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that was kind of
But there was
ridiculous
so many
there.
commentaries and so many memes surrounding the movie, and it was funny. It was,
Yeah.
It was funny, and hopefully, in light of everything,
Right.
hopefully, he takes it with a grain of salt and laughs it
I'm
off.
sure,
But
yeah.
then, in the same respect, hopefully he finds some truth in all of that and say,
Right.
you know what, let me get a writer's room. You
Yeah,
can't do
yeah.
everything, and that's one of the things that a lot of us fail at because we want to do everything
Right.
in our business. And
Right.
I'm gonna quote James Rembert. He said, like, in a business there's three sections of a business. There's the technician, the management, and the systems,
Right.
right? We all want to be the technician. We all want to do everything, and you can't do everything.
Right.
You have to delegate some of
Right,
these things,
right.
right? So you have to have systems set in place. So
Right.
if you need to hire somebody to get those systems in place, get it in place. I'm not saying that, your business is going to fail or anything like that, but you still need to have systems in place. You can't do everything. And Tyler, to me, I feel like he tries to do everything, and he doesn't have to. He's at a place now in his life, in his business, where the business makes him money whether he's awake or asleep. However,
True.
put those systems in place and hire people to do
No,
other
I
things
I
for you.
do agree with you because it was a Netflix film. Like, Netflix is throwing money at people for production.
He got paid for
Except
it.
Right.
Monique. I mean,
Right.
oh, did I say that?
But
Oops.
They ain't messing with
they
Monique.
but
I ain't messing with her
Netflix
neither.
have like
Sometimes
big
it is.
budget stuff, so it's like he could have, they must have given him enough money to do a little bit, to make it a little smoother. Because there were things like something like with the text messages, it was like a screenshot.
Hi,
It
everybody.
wasn't really a text message. It was like screenshots.
Right.
Right. The wigs were terrible.
Did you see the man in the restaurant drinking air?
Yeah.
Put some
He had
water in
the
the
empty
glass.
cup,
Right.
And the food was right there, but
Right.
the food's here, and he was like, airs.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like-
like he was counting his scene. Like,
I was
oh,
like,
okay, I'm supposed to do
Bro, I was
this.
counting calories because I would have ate that whole thing. We'd have had 20 takes. I'd have had 20 omelets. Like, listen, I'm kind of full, so can y'all get this right?
But okay,
But it
and
was a good
I
movie.
get that, but I think like and I got what people were saying. Trust me, it didn't go over my head.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the movie itself, though, it was pretty good. Though I thought it was pretty good.
was.
It
Like the
was.
story, like I wasn't expecting that at the end.
I was expecting
You
like
know-
she was going to jail for the rest of her life, and this was it, and that was that. But
Yeah,
it was a
yeah.
really good
It
plot
was
twist.
good. Yeah, the plot
So-
twist was really good.
So
though, 'cause
nobody's
I didn't
taking that
expect
away
that.
from him, though.
Yeah.
Everybody,
No.
the consensus is that the movie was great.
Yeah, the
but
movie
the production
was good.
trash.
Yeah.
Period.
Because when she was at the end,
Hey, we
was
watched
she like?
bootleg. We can deal with this.
Yeah,
I
You
know,
know what I
right?
mean?
Of course.
I
You
know.
watch
It
bootleg.
still didn't take away from the
It
fact
ain't
that I
take
was all
away
in it,
from
though.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you watch a bootleg movie, you see somebody like, shoot, like, damn, move, man, get out the way. I'm trying to watch
Even
this
the
right
bootleg movies done got better though.
Some bootleg movies
But
are like,
yeah, but it was good.
yeah.
I thought it was a pretty good movie. I was entertained. So
Okay.
that's that.
true.
That's all I wanted to say. People, ready to beat Tyler Perry up.
Yeah.
But
So if y'all haven't
It's
watched it, make
terrible.
sure you watch A Fall from Grace. It's on Netflix.
you know
Check
what I
out
do
the
think is cool though
hairstyles,
when
man.
something come out and on Netflix or whatever, but a lot of times it is Netflix or BET. You know what I do think is cool though, like how everybody kind of gets down with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you
Yeah.
can talk about it in
Yeah.
a way like
It makes
we
you
couldn't
want to
do
watch
that.
it. You know,
Yeah,
because
like
you're
you
like, what's
couldn't
that
do.
really
Yeah,
talking about? Like, I wanna be
the
a part
buzz
of the
around
joke.
it. Yeah, the
Yeah.
buzz around it is really kind of cool, and I that's one of the positives that I do like about social media.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. Social media is a really
Social
good
media.
tool.
Yeah,
if
when
you
it's
utilize
good,
it
yeah,
correctly.
and to me that's
Depending
like
on
a
how
good
you
way.
use it.
Yeah,
You know, if you're using it every day talking about somebody hating on you, go sit down.
yeah, yeah. But
Go
that
sit
was
down.
good because I was like, let me see what they talking about because I saw it and then I'm seeing people, comment on. I'm like, let me watch this movie.
He said, let me see what they
Let
talking
me see
about.
what they talking
Oh, it's
about.
it,
But
yeah.
some people were like, this is the best movie ever, and I'm like, okay, let me
Well,
see what they talking about.
And then when something else comes out, they'll be talking about that too. In fact, you know what? February 14th, The Photograph. That's the next movie.
The Photograph.
The
What's that?
Photograph.
What's that? What's that about?
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to Google that joint. But it comes out. It's about a female who I guess her mother was told her life through pictures, and
Okay.
she didn't really explain to her daughter how she was. But the daughter now fears that she won't find love because she thinks her life is gonna go the same way that her mother's life.
I'm probably gonna fall
You know,
asleep
so-
on that.
No,
Okay,
it's
all right.
it's gonna
But I
be
mean,
all
who's
right.
in that? Who's in that?
I don't know. I'm about to Google it right now. I know
Oh,
my
okay.
man. I know my man Rob Morgan is in it.
Okay.
But past that, I gotta give you the names of the other actors that's in it. Give me about 2 seconds. Wonder what you got.
Yes, sir. So, we just celebrated the holiday of the late, great, slain civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes,
And there were a lot of, shows and, programs centered around the holiday. And I wanted to show this clip. This is from the lawyer. His last name is Pepper, and he represented Martin Luther King's he was charged as the shooter who assassinated Martin Luther King. Now, over the years, there's been a lot of theory about, how it all took place and is that actual facts that he was the lone shooter and assassin of Martin Luther King. And there's been a lot of theories and a lot of things swirling around, and there's a lot of people that are under the consensus that he didn't act alone. Some believe he was just a pawn and he was the fall guy, and there were other moving pieces involved. So I want to show this clip. Super producer Maria, if you could let that run, please.
Tonight, our nation celebrates one of its most inspirational leaders and activists by honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We know all that he came and dealt with racial fairness and lost his life in that fight. But did you know that there are investigations that have gone on about how actually he died? See, most of us think that we know exactly how he died, how he was shot, and it was an open and shut case. Well, guess what? This is an amazing tale that you're about to hear from Michelle Greenstein about what has been uncovered regarding his death. I'm gonna hand it to you and let you take it away, because in my conversations with you thus far, I have been drop-jawed listening to you.
And so was I. I actually spoke earlier today to Dr. William Pepper. He actually, on behalf of Coretta Scott King and the King family, filed a civil suit in the case of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, this is the only trial that's ever been held about this assassination because, as we know, James Earl Ray, after he pled guilty, meant there was no trial. So this is the only trial that's ever been held. Now, we're all familiar with the official story of this lone gunman, right, in 67.
James Earl Ray shot him.
You know, he was in jail for armed robbery. He somehow escaped.
Admitted to it.
Right. But what's interesting is that he pled guilty, but he didn't confess. And actually, in these court transcripts, he says over and over, I did not confess to killing King. And he says he only did so because he feared for his life. He and William Pepper told me that the only reason James pled guilty is because it was the only way to save his life. Now, he did this as a last resort, and he was actually told by his lawyer, Percy Foreman, that he should take the guilty plea because that's how he was going to get a new lawyer. So he saw this as his only way to get rid of this bad lawyer and get a new lawyer. And interestingly enough, he filed for an appeal days afterward and tried to get a new trial. So like I said, I spoke to Dr. Pepper earlier today. Here's what he had to say about the way Dr. Martin Luther King was actually killed.
Wow.
He wasn't killed from the bullet that hit him on the balcony. He was taken to the St. Joseph's Hospital, and he was killed in the emergency room of St. Joseph's Hospital by the chief of neurosurgery, Dr. Breen Bland, who came in when they were all working on him in the emergency room, and he said, get out of here, let that die. And as they moved out of the room, the last one out was a surgical nurse, Lula Mae Shelby, and when she heard them gathering up spit in their lungs to spit on Martin's body lying on a bed there. Then she saw Dr. Bland take the catheters out of Martin's body and take the pillow from under his head and put it over his face and suffocate him. And that's how Martin King died. That's how he was really assassinated. Now, he might have died anyway from the bullet wounds, but he didn't. He was still alive and still breathing. The chief neurosurgeon, he intervened and he made sure that death would result.
Wow.
Right? My jaw was on the floor. Now, Dr. Pepper knows this because the son of the nurse, Lula Mae Shelby, who died, but before she died told her family, the son of this nurse told Dr. Pepper under oath. And when Dr. Pepper confronted a member of the Dixie Mafia, he said, yes, this happened, and actually that the chief of surgery was their family doctor, and that 3 weeks before the assassination, he visited them and said, hey, if the bullet doesn't kill him, make sure he goes to St. Joseph's because we will make sure that he dies. Now, let's talk about this case, okay? This was a civil suit in 1999 where Pepper represented the King family, and that really made the family feel like they had closure, and like I said, it was the only trial ever held. The Memphis jury in this case decided that local, state, and federal governments were liable for King's death.
Won that civil suit.
Wow.
They won it.
Okay.
Now, just something really quick. The civil suit was in, I want to say, the early 90s. Yeah, the civil suit was in the early 90s. Now, there's something else to this. They talked about the Dixie Mafia, and they talked about, make no mistake about it, you know, we all know that Dr. MLK, he was a marked man, and he knew it, and a lot of people around him knew it, in terms of how it would happen, when it would happen, you know, who knows, but he knew it. And also, there's a video. I mean, there's a video and there's an audio recording. I forget the brother's name, but he's in the Nation of Islam, and he was a minister in the South, in, I want to say, either Florida or Georgia. I want to say Georgia. And Malcolm had gone down there, and they met with they met with the Klan. They met with leaders of the Klan in that area. And when they met, they came to the minister's house, and they were asking questions, and they were trying to actually coordinate. They were like, look, we don't want to be with you. You don't want to be with us. We got something in common. And then they were trying to get just random information out of Malcolm and this minister, asking them, you know, hey, can you tell us where King is? Because we've been looking everywhere for this guy and we can't find him. And they were saying, when we do, you know, we want to offer him. And Malcolm was like, no, we don't do that. We're not doing that.
Right.
You know, we just wanted to meet with you to see about, you know, like we have this common thread about how we feel about certain policies, but we're not giving you, you know, we're not giving up anybody, especially not King. Yeah. So I'm just saying that, you know, and that was just a side story that had nothing to do with King, but he was a marked man. And, you know, so now how authentic this is in terms of the truth, I don't know, but I'm just but there are various things that are documented, and I encourage everybody to look at the entirety of that video link. It's very interesting, and you know, a lot of people felt that James Earl Ray, that there was more to it than just him. Right. And I've always said this in previous shows that, you know, for us to put anything past government, it would just be wildly naive to think. You know, it drives me up the wall when I hear people say, "You think our government would do that?" Yeah.
They've done a lot worse.
So yeah, they've done a lot worse actually. Yeah. You know, people for a long time, people were, you know, talking about it's conspiracy about, you know, the United States having something to do with the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. And then 50 years later, they came out, and in the documentary, government officials that are still alive said, yeah, we did. Right. Yeah, we had a hand in it. And that's usually what they do. They wait till, 30, 40, 50 years when everybody's dead and gone and nobody is in a place or position to really do anything about it. And they start revealing, you know, a lot of these truths that a lot of people say, look, we knew this. We told you so. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm not saying this is the gospel, this video, but I thought it was interesting. I don't put it past. I don't put it past the government.
We had heard that in the South for a long time that bullet didn't kill him and that he was smothered once he got to the hospital. Right. There's a little more regarding how they found out and all of his movements and things like that. There was an individual who went the Judas route, if you will, and there's CIA records alluding to it. There is proof of it. Yep. And then when you put two and two together, you do get four. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's what Ralph Abernathy was trying to tell before he died to get off of his conscience. Right. But remember, they stopped everybody from talking to him. Like, no.
And you Andy can't talk to him right now. Andrew Young. Right. You know, the first time I heard that Dr. MLK was still alive when he was brought to the hospital was from Andrew Young. Andrew Young was like, no, he was alive and he was talking. And so, you know, just very interesting, but
if you research it, you'll fill in all the blanks that we just left out.
I guess I in closing, is, and you know, I tell my son this, and I tell when I have the opportunity to speak to young people, I tell them this, and I know a lot of times it comes across as a downer, but I'm just trying to give them a heads up. Don't think that because you are doing a good deed that, you know, things are going to open up for, like, everybody's going to be with you. And I always tell my son, you know, he's educated, he's well versed in a lot of social issues that goes on. He's involved,
and he's blickety black.
He moves the needle, and he's bleeding black. And I told him, you know, it's one thing to be pro-black, but when you're pro-black and you're educated and you can really move that needle, you become a threat. So you have to be careful. Right. You have to be careful. Now here it is, the most peaceful man on the planet during his time, MLK, you know, where he took flack from his own people. I didn't agree with some of his policies. I lean more towards Malcolm, to everybody's surprise. but really? But no. Here it is. He died a most violent death. Yeah, the irony of that, right? Yeah, and I would also encourage people to check out speeches of Martin's latter days. Some of his speeches when he talks about reparations, and he talks about, you know, certain things, and also there's documentation, there's writings of his where he talks about. He's saying, look, if we don't get what we want, he's not saying he's for it, but he's like, people are going to start rioting. And this is where that whole thing, the riots are the voice of people who are not heard. And so he wasn't really justifying it, but he wasn't condemning it as he was during his earlier days. He started kind of, you know, and people always say Malcolm and Martin started kind of gravitating to the middle in their doctrine and their philosophy.
And
so
they both were pretty young. Like, I think
both 39.
Yeah, both of them were.
They were assassinated at 39.
like the older you get and you think about, you know, being 39, you know, that's pretty young, but who can honestly say that the things that you thought at 25 or 27 are still the things that you think now? You know, like you mature, right?
Yeah.
The things that you might have done at 20, I know myself, I wouldn't dream of doing, right?
No. Of
The
course
stuff
not.
I did at 25, I mean, like, no. It's kind of scary, to be honest with you, but I think as you say, like, kind of gravitating to the middle, I think that came with like maturity, because when you think about it, you know, they both were still really quite young, you know.
Right.
I think when, you know, what bothers me sometimes in the media too is particularly the mainstream media with Martin Luther King, and you know, they talk about, you know, nonviolence, and I get that and I understand that, and that's what he stood for. But at the time of his assassination, he was not a very popular figure. You know, he was past the "I have a dream," you know, speech. He was well past that. You know, it's 5 years now, right? So, and the message that he was talking about was a lot more radical. You know, and to me, I think overall, I view him more as a radical. You know, he was a radical, and when you know what happens to radicals in this country. You know, particularly, you know,
Black
rabble rousers, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, particularly black, you know, radicals. You know, we know what happens. We have the evidence to see what happens to them. But when you read his later, you read his later papers, you read his later speeches. You know what he's not asking. He's almost more like demanding. You know, and I think that he always made people uncomfortable. He always made the government uncomfortable. Even when you like research the March on Washington, you know, that was not without controversy, you know, and they didn't want to have that march. You know, even people within his circle, there was skepticism. Certainly there was skepticism in the government. It was like reluctantly they agreed to do it, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important that everybody does their research so that you know, our historical figures don't get, you know, erased or whitewashed away, you know, with what really was going on, you know. So yeah, that's good stuff, Wonder. Thanks.
Thank you.
You
We
know,
got a little heavy real quick.
yeah, real quick.
Real quick, but we
And-
need that sometimes.
To answer your question about who's in the photograph, Issa Rae, Lakeith Stanfield,
What's this now?
Lil Rel Howery,
Who is
Courtney
this?
B. Vance. The photograph, that movie. Those
Oh,
are the
okay.
individuals that are in
Oh,
the
the
movie.
photograph.
Yeah,
Oh.
Jasmine Cephas, Rob Morgan, Kelvin Harrison, Tiana Paris, Kingsley Benadir.
All right, it's coming on
Yeah, so-
Netflix.
No, it's coming out in the movies.
Oh, in the
Valentine's
movies.
Day.
Oh, okay, all right.
Valentine's
Did y'all
Day.
see Bad Boys 3?
Not yet.
I didn't see
yet.
that
I was
yet,
never
but
into
that
that
was really, yeah, I
franchise.
was never really. I'm not gonna go to movies to see that because I really wasn't into that either. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's
like,
gonna
"Nah,
be
for
wait for
real,
that.
I'm not
That'll be a
going."
Netflix thing.
You
You
can
know.
wait for it to hit
Yeah,
Netflix.
or Amazon Prime, whoever get it first. Yeah.
We said Fire Stick, something. Right?
Yeah.
We go back to old school bootlegs, y'all.
Yeah.
The dude in the barbershop guy.
Yeah, I
everything you
didn't.
need.
Yeah, that wasn't one that's gonna be on my list.
Okay.
Not for the movies, anyway.
Not for the movie.
Yeah, not for the pay for the movies. Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, let's Melissa. What you got?
Oh, I got a lot to say.
Let's go.
Got a lot to talk about.
Here we go.
I wanted to talk specifically about addiction.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk specifically about addiction is recently, you know, in the news, they had this viral video of Delonte West, former NBA player,
Yes.
you know, getting beat up in the middle of the street. And, you know, we have become a society that, you know, wants to go viral. Nobody wants to help anymore. What we're seeing here is both mental illness and addiction, right? So I had a few questions that I wanted to kind of throw out because I had posted something yesterday, and a friend of mine who's a social worker, he addressed me offline on the side because he was saying to me that addiction and mental health does not go hand in hand. And I was saying that it does. And the reason why I spoke to that is because, you know, I'm 12 years in recovery and I'm breaking my own anonymity speaking about that. I'm 12 years in recovery, and, you know, from what I've been around, what I've seen, you know, I always felt as though they went hand in hand. So my question to the audience, my question to you guys, do you guys feel as though, or do you guys feel that mental health is attributed to addiction, or is addiction attributed to mental health?
They
Let
kind
me-
of go.
let me-
They go hand in hand.
Yeah,
Right?
let me just back up
right
for a
back.
second because I didn't see this video. What happened in
So
this
basically, nobody really knows what's happening in terms of the backstory.
Okay.
All you see is he's on the highway.
video? Okay.
Clearly, he's
Impaired.
Beat up.
not even
No.
impaired, a drug addict, right? So to speak. Clearly,
okay,
he's a drug
okay.
addict. His fall from grace is very, very strong.
Okay.
And somebody's beating him up in the middle of the street.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
people are videoing this, right? I think even a police officer. People were videoing this and, you know, posting it so they could go viral instead of like really helping this
that's
brother
not cool.
out. You know what I mean? And my heart broke for him because I understand being in the grips of addiction. I
Okay.
understand that pain, you know, wanting to stop and can't stop.
I see this.
You know, and on the flip side of that, though, I was happy to hear that a lot of his former teammates were coming to his aid, saying that, you know, they're willing to help him, they're going to go find him, they're going to get him treatment, they're really, you know, going to bring him to, you know, pick him back
One
up.
of the higher ups in basketball,
Shout out to Mark Cuban.
in like the front office of basketball.
Yeah.
I think he sat on a committee. He saw that video and he posted
this
in the
video.
thread.
Okay.
He said I'm on it. He said I'm working on this right now. So once he saw it,
Mark
Terry
Cuban
Ann, that's
also,
true. That's what I was talking about.
Agreed to match dollar
Whether or
for
not
dollar
do
with
you
Yeah.
think
LeBron
that it's
James to get
attributed
him some help.
to
So,
mental health,
Yeah.
or do
You
you
know.
think that mental health is attributed to
I
drug
would say-
addiction? What do you
know
guys
what?
think?
hey, if you have
True.
give us a call. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, give us a call,
646-233-1302.
Sound off,
Get on the
guys.
air,
Guys,
sound off, so we can hear you. You know, but
You know, because on my live,
They
I
blowing it up
have
on your
Terry
live.
Ann saying that drug addiction is not always due to mental health. Her opinion, and that I could see that. That's true, but then when you kind of on the flip side,
once you become addicted to something, then your brain tells you that you need it. And in some cases,
but then you have people
know,
that's mental health and they have to take these
self-medicate.
They have to, you know. I mean,
that's
it's
why I
such a
say they
broad
go
topic.
together.
It's such a broad topic
Right.
depending on who you speak to, because you can speak to someone in the mental health profession that can tell you that no, it's not attributed, but then you could speak to someone like myself who's an addict in recovery that'll say, I believe that from what I've seen in my experience that this is what it is. But then, you know, textbook experience, like it's just so.
For me, I'd rather take real life experience because you lived it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody, you can go to school.
you can
and-
definitely speak on it.
Right,
if
you can
lived
go to
it.
school.
True.
Someone can go to school and learn about what they
Yeah.
think it may
She
be,
said,
and then somebody else is living it. Let me talk to the person that's lived it.
yeah.
Because that's real. The textbook is a if.
But let me tell you something about addiction. Addiction is a threefold disease. You know, it attacks your mental, physical, and spiritual, right? So mentally, you become obsessed with the getting and the using of the drugs. You know, that mental obsession now becomes a compulsion, right? Whether you want to use or not, the compulsion to use
I
is
gotta
it,
get
you have to. So now it's a physical thing. And then the spiritual aspect of it is that you're spiritually depleted. You're bankrupt. You're not even God-centered. You're self-centered. So you know, when you see addicts and you see them in the grips of their addiction, you know, they've reduced themselves to the most animalistic levels, you know. And then when you get into your spiritual program, and your spiritual program teaches you now that you have a moral deficiency, which is a disease of addiction. The disease of addiction is no different from cancer,
Right.
right? You have your treatment for cancer, right? The spiritual program is your treatment for the addiction. and you have people who were, due to their addiction, their mental health took a toll. And then once they recovered, they don't have an issue with their mental health. So now you're going to tell me that addiction is attributed to mental health and mental health is, you understand? That's where I'm coming from. And that's the dichotomy that I'm
just from, you know what, from having, I have someone very close to me, who was, they recovered.
Jackie.
I'm not going to say recovered, but they've, since the last time they were addicted was way back when. But I think it's a combination of the two. I believe that. And the one thing about what I can speak to just from the outside looking in with this person who's up close, up front, is that you may be functioning but dealing with some mental issues, and sometimes that drug is used for escapism, to get away from certain things. And there's a whole plethora of reasons and avenues and levels, but I'm just telling you from what I saw, it was more of an escapism, like to get away from reality and not deal with reality. And even in that, you can say that there's a mental deficiency there when you're in denial of a lot of things that are going on, and instead of getting help or psychological help or whatever, they were using drugs as an outlet. So I'm agreeing with you. I think they go hand in hand on both. So
the drugs are the symptoms of whatever issue that you have. So if the drugs were the answer, what exactly was the question? Right.
Well, right, and you can also you could substitute drugs for food. You could substitute drugs for gambling. Right, like that addiction could be anything. There's something that, whatever it is, there's a void that you're trying to fill. Right. So, but I think for. But there's a lot of people that also, and I guess I'm trying to figure out like. What describe like mental illness? Are we talking about bipolar? Are we talking about schizophrenia? Like what are we talking about as far as like
depression? Maybe?
Like what exactly are we talking? Because mental illness is a
broad topic.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a broad
big
topic.
thing,
and
right?
So,
are we talking about like abuse as a child? Like what are we talking about? Because sometimes it might not be. Sometimes it could be something. Let's say. Someone was physically abused, let's say they were physically abused, right? And like Wonder is saying, is something that it's physically abused as a child, and this is not uncommon for children or youth. There's many of these documentaries of people that have been abused by these priests, and they turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs. I'm not sure if that's like necessary. I'm not sure if that fits my definition of like mental illness, but certainly there's a deficiency there that there was harm that was done.
And so what happens
and so instead of trying to, or maybe you don't even know how to deal with it. It's kind of messed up.
Too.
Yeah, you're traumatized, right? And it's kind of like you're putting
and
the
that's still the
onus
mental.
on
Doesn't
that
that fall
victim.
into the mental?
But it falls
right,
back
exactly.
to it falls back to that
person
escapism.
is a victim, right?
It falls back to that escapism. So in the spiritual program, right? This is why I love my spiritual program, because it teaches you to deal with life on life's terms, right? It gives you coping mechanisms to deal with life, because any addict that all they're used to doing is running away from their issues, right? And so you start to do the work on yourself, right? And it's really hard to explain for someone that's not in the program, but you start to do the work on yourself where the questions are geared to get to the exact nature of what the issue is.
I understand, but that issue may not be mental illness. That issue could have been abuse.
It could be anything.
You know what I'm saying,
it could
right?
Be lack of emotional love, lack of emotional support.
Right, exactly.
So to your point, I do get what you're saying in terms of that. They might not go hand in hand.
Right, they might not.
They might not.
Right,
it depends.
I agree with you. There's a symptom there. Like in this, I just kind of quickly looked at this video. There's a symptom there that, and we don't know exactly what his issue is. but there is a symptom there, and for whatever reason, like being in the NBA is not exactly conducive to, let's say, a regular lifestyle. Like I watched that documentary on Aaron Hernandez too. When you're an athlete, that kind of puts you in a different, a different stratosphere, even from high school. People treat you differently. So if you're, supposed to be like the man, it's difficult. It might be difficult for you to, to step back and say, hey, you know what, I got a problem. That whatever that problem is,
Okay, caller, welcome to Let's Talk About It. State your name and where you calling from.
How you doing? My name is Kashim. I'm calling from New York.
My brother, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, John?
Not much, bro. What's going on? What's going on with you? Tell me something.
Hey, nothing. I'm just listening to a lot of the content and all that stuff, and I'm listening to all of the different opinions on it, and I think that each one of them definitely play a part. Everybody, I think, has what they spoke of. Every piece of it is definitely a part of it. Right. I think that there's equal. It all equals itself out for whatever reasons that someone may be addicted to something, whether it's drugs, whatever it is, the spectrum of it is. Because you have people. Because I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to drink. Right. I used to, I used to be into, different things. I never took hard drugs.
Dibbled here, dibbled there.
I never took hard drugs or anything like that. The most I've ever done was smoke weed. Right. So that way we could just clear it out right there. And most of the time that I did those things, it was strictly because I wanted to. A lot of the times it was just because I wanted to. I was curious. I seen what was up. I don't think that I really made any excuses because sometimes if anything that I was addicted to a lot over and over again was cigarettes.
Right.
And that you don't even have to have a problem with that because even me, I'll speak about myself. Okay. Smoking cigarettes was the hardest thing to do. It was just like for every little thing I made an excuse to smoke a cigarette. I smoked it because I was drinking coffee. I smoked it because it was early in the morning. I smoked it because I thought I needed one at night for the stimulation before I went to bed.
Right.
There's just different reasons for it. And a person on the outside looking in, when they see the person who is a smoker, they say, oh, you smoke, what are you stressed out? What are you this? What are you that? Maybe the person just likes it. Maybe the person just likes the taste of tobacco and likes the menthol and likes the things that gives them the stimuli, the mental stimuli. The person might not even be going through an issue at all.
Right.
They could just like it.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying about with the drugs and stuff like that. Yeah, there's some people who may have a dependency upon these things because they can't go any further than where the drug or the cigarette or the alcohol or whatever their vice is, that's as far that it takes them. They don't need their mind to go any further. And when your mind doesn't go any further, just like I agree with the woman, there's a depletion of thought. Because if you're not going to go any further, I guess we all logically know we're going to go in reverse. And the downhill slide goes on with that. Right. And I think that goes with anything, just like you said, with food, with all of these things. But sometimes with certain things and certain vices, I just feel like, I think that sometimes, even in some factors, people do things because they want to. Because when it came down to cigarettes, I quit it in a day. Because I didn't feel like it anymore. And I asked myself, why am I still smoking cigarettes? And I didn't have a reasonable answer. Right. So I stopped because I thought I didn't have a reasonable answer. When I was drinking, I used to drink, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that I used to get dizzy and tipsy and not in control. And not because it was a bad thing, or I would shoot to anybody who who could control their liquor better than me, but it was just something that I felt I didn't want to do anymore. Just like with any cigarette smoker that I wish on that day, I don't point fingers at them because I was there with you.
Right.
I smoked cigarettes. I know what it's like to light up a stove in the middle of the cold and just smoke it and flick it because you ain't supposed to be out in that cold.
Right.
And it's brick and it's all of the wrong things that draw you for a 10-minute pull on some cigarettes. But the person is not killing them. And they can watch as many cigarette commercials as they want and know the effects of the cigarettes. But at some point in period in life, sometimes we just do things because we want to.
And that's a great point. That's a great point to make. One of the things that compelled me to really want to address this topic today is, when I saw that video, like, I just started crying, because I'm looking at it from the recovering addict perspective, not someone who's a normal person, not their eyes, because normal person will say, why can't he get help, And it's deeper than that,
Yeah, I think it's deeper than that. It's definitely deeper than that. I think when you get to a certain, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drug, like nobody wants to be a drug addict. Nobody wants to be an alcoholic. Nobody wants to have a gambling addiction.
Right.
Nobody wants to do that. But I think at some point, and at first you might do it because it's enjoyable, like drinking. Like everybody's first drink was probably enjoyable. You know what I'm saying? First time you might have smoked some weed, it was fun. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It was fun. But at some point, you kind of like cross a line, where it's like, how can some people drink, right, and not become alcoholics? How do some people drink and they reach that point where they can't stop, like you said, the compulsion, right, and some don't, right, and it's just like once that hits you, that's the disease. The disease is the obsession and the compulsion. That is the disease. I understand that when I see someone in that state, first of all, it's very sad, and that person has a problem. I think that society as a whole is a lot more educated about addiction, whatever it is. I think we are a lot more educated and know that, again, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be like that. He's in a place where it's dark and he can't get out. And you know what? Sometimes you just need somebody to help you.
That's the that's
exactly. And he's at a place where, as the gentleman said, he can't think straight. His thinking is so distorted right now. His physical dependency on whatever it is has just overcome. His
the threefold. The again, because addiction is threefold. He has been reduced to the animalistic level.
Right. Exactly.
He's mentally, physically, spiritually.
I'm hoping I'm not interrupted. I get it on the level of when someone it is. I wouldn't say that the person themselves is animalistic, but I could say the loss of reasoning is animalistic.
The behavior,
and the reason why I say that we could say about another thing that we wouldn't understand. A man can creep out of his house and go and have an extramarital affair and set everything up and do everything that he can to get outside to face his outside addiction. But he can watch his whole home crumble right in front of his face just through the suspicious behavior.
Right.
But it wouldn't stop him from going outside to keep going until he finally gets thrown out of his house.
Right.
And I don't even
And then
think
there's a
that's
problem.
animalistic. That is a choice that you made.
Bad choice.
And you was
man.
addicted to those choices and bad decisions until you got kicked out of your house. And then once he gets kicked out of his house, it seems like that's when everybody says, what was wrong with him?
Panic
Because
mode.
no one truly understands why sometimes
Well,
people do what they do.
I think that people don't understand because understanding the disease of addiction and understand that it's a progressive disease, right? It doesn't happen overnight, right? It takes years and years and years before you become addicted, right? And when you're in recovery, it takes years and years for you to become recovered because in recovery, your walk has to be different. Everything about you have to be different. You have to surrender to the process every day, right? And it's more so a connection with the God of your understanding. You know, a lot of people, the problem is a lot of people weren't surrendering to that process. And with the, like I said, addiction is a process and it's a progressive disease. Everybody has to hit their rock bottom. My rock bottom is different from yours, right? My rock bottom for me was that spiritual depletion, right? You know, I was wearing multiple masks. I didn't know who I was. At the end, I was hiding from my own shadow. Right? That's where my disease took me. I was by myself. I was isolated. I was in my room, you know, hiding and running from my own shadow. The hallucination, all of these different things, right? So you're reduced at different levels. I surrendered to the process December 26, 2008. I was like, I can't do this anymore, right? And when you surrender to the process and you surrender completely and ask your higher power to help you, then recovery will take place because you are now open to the idea of being recovered.
Right.
So everybody has to go through that process. I don't know if
right.
Delonte West is there
He
yet.
might not even be there.
He might
right.
not be there
He
yet.
might not be there. And I think what the gentleman was saying about smoking cigarettes, you had reached that point where you were like, this is it for me. You know, and until people can reach that point of
I think that
this is the end
I'm
for
part
me.
of
You know,
me,
like this is
but
it.
I think
like,
that
everybody has to do that.
what I find in common with a lot of cigarette smokers, even before we buy that pack, we are reluctant and still push through.
Yep.
Right.
I
Because
think
you're
that we're very
addicted.
reluctant.
Because you're addicted.
Because you're addicted.
Every day, a smoker feels it in his chest and says that this is his last day.
Just like every day.
But here's the deal, though. You're not.
Heroin
You're not
addict-
hurting nobody.
a heroin-
You're not getting beat up in the street over cigarettes.
A heroin addict
Right.
has
Yeah, but
to
you know what?
has
But
to
you
get a
know
bag
what?
of heroin every day just to function.
You're not getting. Hold on. You're not getting beat up
Physically,
outside,
you are. Physically,
but the
you
smoker
are.
feels like
Inside.
he's getting beat up inside.
Well, can I add something? Can I add something?
And that's every day that he lives.
Can I?
No, I understand that. I'm not. I understand what you're saying. I think to what Melissa is saying, with this guy in this video, like I said, I just took a quick look.
Yeah.
And you're saying somebody was videotaping that
A whole
video.
bunch of people.
Smokers don't go through that. I'm just
Nobody-
saying.
exactly.
Yeah. Smokers don't go
But
through
can I?
that.
But
can
then
I,
again-
can
And
I
I'm not belittling because I used to
interject?
smoke. Listen,
Yeah.
I know, all right? I'm not,
Yeah.
but I got to a point where I'm like, I'm done with this. You know, I'm done with this.
You're
Right.
physically addicted.
Right.
You can't get to a
Right.
point where you're done with it. You
No,
know, gotta
but you
go
are
through-
physically addicted,
Yeah.
you know, but psychologically, it was like, I'm done with
That,
Go ahead,
well,
Wanda.
that's
No,
what I wanted to.
Psychologically.
Right.
Going back to your original question, I think when we say mental issue, you know, we think of the extreme.
Yeah.
But there's something still going. I don't care how minute the addiction may be.
Mm-hmm.
If you are smoking a cigarette and the doctor is saying, "Hey, look, you know, if you don't stop,
Yeah,
then
right.
So and you keep going.
It's the compulsion.
Well,
right.
the
compulsion.
So
right.
there's still something.
Right.
Which I'm going back to your original. I think it does tie in. There's something going on up here. The gentleman mentioned he gave the he painted the picture of the husband who's breaking up his family. He's doing these things and he's watching his world crumble. And sometimes, people in their reality, sometimes their reality is not the real world, whether it be cigarettes, relationship, or whatever. There was a movie that came out about Earl
Cigarettes
the Goat
don't break up
Manigault.
families.
No. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that.
You ain't going to jail over no cigarettes.
I'm not talking about.
Right.
I'm not talking about.
Right.
I'm not talking about.
Right.
I'm not comparing consequences in terms of, whether it's heroin or whether it's cigarettes. But what I am saying is that there is still damage going on.
Absolutely.
So, but let me just say this: Earl the Goat Manigault. There was a movie on him. On him, and Don Cheadle played him. And he was during the time of his contemporaries were, I think, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. As a matter of fact, he's one of the ones that started the Rucker Park.
Rucker Park. Okay.
And so he got so hooked. Now he was on some heavy drugs.
Right.
Okay.
And he got so hooked that he had taken leave from college and he got hooked and he was out in the streets. And so they found him and they brought him to the police station and his mother and his girlfriend was there. And when they saw him, they were crying and he was like, I'm all right. I'm okay. I just took a semester off. I can get back into school. And his mother and girlfriend just busted out crying even more. And he was like, what's wrong? Why are you crying?
That's a denial.
He had been gone for 2 years. He thought he was gone for just a little while, but he had been gone for 2 years. I say all of that to say this. That's the extreme. But with someone who smokes, I can cut. I'm going to stop. But your reality, you're killing yourself. And then it comes time where, sometimes your sense of reality is not dealing with time and space in terms of. So all I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you that every little addiction, I think there is something going on
subconsciously
up here. There's something going on up here. Now, to what levels? And,
Okay. So let me ask a question. So let me just ask a question. So with or without, so what about the people who had those issues, those mental issues before they did drugs? And if they never did drugs and they still have those mental issues, but those mental issues depleted, after a while of not getting any help, they still face the same mental depletion. Are we still looking at them in an animalistic behavior, or are we looking at it as a mental problem? It was just a drug that just
I'm not following
was
your
a
question.
a dependency.
So I'm not following your question. So I'm going to try and surmise it a little bit. So are you saying that somebody that has a mental illness, but they're not taking drugs, and then at some point they're not taking?
I just think that mental illness is mental illness. I think that drug addiction is drug addiction.
No,
I think that addiction to anything is addiction.
Okay.
Is there anything? Is there? There's mental. Anybody can be struck with some type of mental illness at any time. We never know what.
Yeah, but a drug use can exacerbate that. So your drug use can exacerbate that mental illness.
I think the drug use can exacerbate that.
Overthinking can.
Right.
Sometimes a person could overthink, and that could be a depletion of their brain.
True.
Because sometimes they're just trying to figure out things that are way beyond the weight of what their mind can handle. And sometimes a person just burns out. Some people jump out of windows and commit suicide. They may have never taken a drug in their life, but their brain just tells them something different one day. I'm just saying that we have to learn how. I just say in certain things that to give it a broad stroke is not cool, because it's like even something as just like with everybody talking about with cigarettes and putting that into mental illness. That doesn't have to be the case. Because sometimes with every cup of coffee, it was my culture. to drink coffee and smoke a cigarette. There was nothing wrong with me mentally. I was sound. I knew exactly what was going
well,
on.
let me ask, let me ask you something.
But where the mental comes in is the compulsion, the inability to stop.
Right.
Even though you know it's hurting you.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's
Good
the
point.
little mental, right? That's the mental right
the
there.
heartbeat
I'm
of
not
addiction.
saying, hold on, bro. I'm not saying you needed medication. Okay, I'm not saying you needed a
and
psychiatrist.
some people do to wean off
right?
of
And
cigarettes.
some people
I'm just
do.
saying.
Wean
Right.
off, but I
Some
get what you're
people
saying.
do, but it's the compulsion.
Right.
It is the inability to stop.
That's what I'm
once
talking-
you
that's
get
all I'm
started,
saying.
even though it is hurting you. Just like the man that is a sex addict and will destroy his family. You know,
And
for
still
it to-
rationalize
and still,
it. Right.
'Cause
There's
he
something going
cannot
on up
stop.
there.
He cannot stop. And that's the thing with the disease of addiction. You get that thought, and like you said, you cross that point. I started this by saying nobody wants to be a freaking drug addict. Nobody wants to be an alcoholic.
That's a good
It
point,
starts
Sonny.
off fun. You know, it starts off fun.
I
And
have
for
a
some
mental
people,
health specialist on here.
and for some
no,
people,
no.
they can
I
stop. And
wanted
for some
that
people,
weed.
they
I
can't
wanted
stop.
that weed when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
said
no,
I
I'm
would-
saying, but
I
and
knew-
some
I
people
knew-
can
and
stop,
I didn't have
and then
any.
some.
I didn't have
Ooh,
any
this is
mental
good.
issues. No, none of that.
No,
I
I'm
just
not,
wanted-
Hold on one second.
Listen. I'm not
Y'all,
saying
hold
you
on one
did
second. We got-
because you started. The mental illness comes when you cannot stop.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
the problem,
So
right?
we
What you
have a
got?
commenter, Mr.
What you got,
Sonny
Ms. Melissa?
Allen, and he is a mental health specialist. What he's saying is that there is such a thing as co-occurring disorders. The age-old question has always been, is the mental illness causing people to use drugs, or are people using drugs to deal with the mental illness?
It's kind of
I
It's
think-
hand in hand.
I think there's a deficiency, right? There's something.
Well,
yeah.
The drugs, like you said, are the symptom, but there may be something else. There may be something else there, and then also,
Hear anymore?
I don't know. I mean, it's
This
everybody
topic
Good
is
question.
this is
Good
this
question.
is
This-
like
this is
yeah.
the topic that
You know what?
can.
What we gonna do
it
is
has layers.
There's so
it
many
does.
layers to it
And
because
It
you want me
does.
to tell you
It does have
something?
layers.
You want me to tell you
Because-
something? I agree with each and every one of
Oh,
you.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I
too.
agree with you
don't-
too. You have some very valid
I'm no
points.
professional
No, you
on
did.
this.
what we're gonna do is actually move this conversation because
Yeah.
it's a good one over to the page. We have
All right.
reached that
Well,
time,
can I
man,
wish-
and we appreciate your call, brother.
Thanks
Thank
Love you,
you.
man.
Thanks for
Joining
calling in.
us.
I'll talk to
Don't
you
let it,
later.
don't let
alright?
it be your
Thank
last.
you
8
all
o'clock.
for
Oh, it's
your
past
input.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, it's already
For
past.
everything.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for allowing
joining
me
us.
the time, and
All right.
I wish y'all the best. I'll be watching.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, bro. Talk
All
to
right.
you.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right,
Sonny,
then.
that was a
Take
very
care.
good question.
All right.
Thank
Even
you.
going back
All right.
to Renee, Renee had some good questions where she was talking about, you know, I had somebody on here, mental illness and drug addiction go hand in hand. The things we do to get one more is not what sane people do,
Wow.
right? And then you have to talk
That's what
about
I'm
that when
saying,
you're talking
right.
about it from a recovering addict's perspective. You know, a woman doesn't go out there tricking because she wants to trick. She's
Right.
tricking because
Right.
she has to
Right,
support
right.
that
She's
habit.
not
So
right.
is
She's
that not a mental
She's
illness?
not stealing. Right. She's not leaving her child. She's
Yeah.
not abandoning her children
When you
because she
got-
wants to. It's because she can't.
Yeah.
In her mind,
Because
she's
we've been
so
reduced
twisted
to
up, right.
that level.
She can't
and
stop.
And
right.
when you find out that once you start to recover and
But
you
I
find
think-
out that you lack a moral deficiency, you
My
understand
brother
it
had
better.
put
Right,
that-
right. You understand it,
brother
and
had
like
put
you
that
said,
on
you
there.
start you're recovering, so your thinking changes.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, it's not like you on some type of
Thank you guys for joining us.
Medication,
Really
you
great
know, but
topic.
yeah.
Really great topic.
Yeah.
Addiction is not just drugs. I'm talking to my audience right now. Addiction is not just drugs. It takes its form in different shapes. You know, there's people who are, you know, addicted to shopping, addicted to eating, addicted to excessive exercise.
But
all the different
I
things.
believe though, with addiction though, there's and people have heard this definition of insanity. It's the insanity comes because you keep doing the same thing, expecting something different to happen.
So
you know, so
that would be a mental illness,
right? That's where the insanity comes in.
And
Exactly.
And that's
right.
what we tell
Right.
ourselves. In addiction, you tell yourself, I'm gonna take this one and I'm gonna go to bed and I'm gonna do this. That's why you cannot.
And the result is the
you
same
can't. The next
as
thing you're going on a 2-week binge.
When you got to the point where you
Addiction
surrendered, like my brother Kel Graves says, sister, you just got tired.
I just got tired, and everybody has to get
everybody
to that. It's,
has
like
to
I
get
said,
to
it's
that
a progressive
point.
disease. Like if you're not ready to stop, you're not going to get the message.
And it's the same thing.
It's the same thing with cigarettes.
Right.
If
it's
you're
the
not
same
ready
thing
to
with
stop,
cigarettes.
I struggled for years with cigarettes.
Right. If you're not ready to
I
stop.
went from buying packs to buying loosies to bumming off of everybody to this to that to scrumming up
said, let me just
taking
get
change
one.
out my mom's pocketbook to go buy a cigarette.
But
and then
to
when you
but
get
to
tired-
your point, and I think you and me were making the same point too. Like ain't nobody losing their job over no cigarettes.
Exactly.
Ain't nobody losing their kids over those cigarettes. Now let's be for real.
People lose kids.
Depending on what they spray
Drugs
on
break
them
up
cigarettes,
marriages.
though.
Right.
Addiction has
Exactly.
broken up marriages.
Right.
Children,
Yeah.
all of these different things. So it's like
You lose your job over cigarettes when you smoked enough and you got cancer and
That's
you
why they
can't
have-
work anymore.
yeah, that's
but
how you
that's
lose your
not-
job.
You got that.
But
you
I
got
never.
that,
but my
where's
point
the-
wasn't to compare
Right.
what is more dangerous. What I'm saying is
So listen to
something,
this.
All right,
whether
so
it
we're
be
gonna have
high
to
or
roll it
low,
up,
there's
man.
something
We
going
gotta
on.
roll it
up
up.
here.
Yeah, we got to. Well, we
Okay,
gotta wrap
so
it
our
up.
next show is Thursday, February 6th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Join
7
us
p.m.
again.
Join us
Thursday,
again.
February
This is a good
6th.
show.
And we'll
Got
talk more
anything
about
else,
it. Thank
Ms.
you
E?
guys so much. 21 million people in America suffer from some form of addiction. 15 million alcohol use disorder. 3 million opioid use disorder. 50,000 people died from opioid overdose. That's more than guns and car accidents. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
All right, Wonder,
We
what
appreciate you, okay?
you
Take
got,
care.
Wonder?
Hey, listen, I want to thank all of those who have been donating shoes to our little our cause. We're taking up a shoe collection, and we're working with this organization called Fund 2.0. And what they do is they take these shoes, and then they, in turn, they send them to third world countries, and they set impoverished families up to actually sell these shoes to make a living, to make money for themselves. So I want to thank everyone who has donated shoes, and it ends February 20th. So if you have shoes that you want to that are lightly worn that you don't plan on wearing and you want to donate them, let me know. Hit me up.
All right, well, we're going to give a quick shout out to super producer, Ms. Maddie. Thank you for everything. Shout out to Black Ops. I stole your chair one more time, all right? I might give it back to you. I might not. But when you walk outside your front door, y'all, the showtime in the world is your stage. Just make sure the people are not watching the rehearsal. Make sure, again, salute Storm Norm the General. And I'm just making sure I'm looking at this right. You want to read this whole thing right here? All right, cool. They're giving away a pair of tickets to see the legendary Ice-T performing live at UC Pack in Rahway, New Jersey on February 15th. Just have to answer 2 trivia questions about Ice-T and win tonight on the Storm Warning Show, 10:30 p.m., all right? So make sure that you stay tuned here to WBKS1. And if in 2 weeks you got something to talk about, let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good evening, y'all.
Take care. This was a good show.